Hello learners, today we want to do accounting for work in progress. In our last class, we talked about accounting work in progress in detail, and I explained what it means and how it works. The thing that we did last time in our last class, we tried and used the first in, first out method. And we also looked into the question, the example question, and we did the calculation. And I believe you understood very well the FIFO method. Today we are proceeding with the same question, the same topic, that is accounting for work in progress. But in our calculation today, we are going to use the average cost method. The average cost method. Now, there is very slim difference between these two methods. The first one is first in, first out. Meaning you start with the product or the materials that came in first. In this part of average costing, we do not do that. We take everything that we have as a whole and try to combine their cost to come up with the cost per unit that is an average of the cost of what came in first, what came in the middle, and what came in probably in the last part of the process. So in simple terms, for example, in simple terms, if we had material opening at a cost of 100,000, that is at the opening, and in the middle of process, we added another material. This is mid process. That was 80,000. And remember, maybe this one around 10,000 units, and these ones were also 10,000 units. You see, in costing or in the normal operation of a business, you will notice that sometimes the prices goes up, some other times it comes down. So this is what we are trying to find out. These are the same material, both at a different time with different price at a different cost. So you end up finding that you have here, you have 180,000 shillings, and here you have 20,000 units of material. So their average cost is therefore the total of the material you used during that period divided by the number of units of material. Therefore, the average cost will therefore be 180,000 divided by 20,000. Okay? 180,000 divided by 20,000. That is like 18 divided by 2. So this is 9. Shillings 9 per unit. It might be per unit or per kg. But here, if you look very well, if you try and divide it, this one will be 10 shillings per unit. but this will be 8 shillings per unit. In FIFO, therefore, in FIFO, we took, if this came in first, we make sure that we use this first before using this. Okay? We make sure that we use this first. In our process, we use this first. And then in the process, at the later date, we use this. This you might find that the ones that came at the beginning, we didn't use all of it. We didn't use all of it. So we only take the portion that we used. But in average, we take everything. We take everything that we acquire. Not only what we use, we take everything that we acquire. Now, today we are going to continue with the same question. So mostly today we are going to do the calculation, not much of the introduction, because that one we did when we are using the FIFO method. Now, here is our question. The following data relate to process 2 for one accounting period. The following data relate to process 2 for one accounting period. Process 2 receives units from process 1 and after processing, transfer them to process 3. Now, these are the data. Opening work in progress 600 units. This is what we had used earlier. Now, items. Then we have value. Then we have percentage completed. The percentage completed. Input material valued at 20 at 720. That is 100% complete. Material introduced 500 as shillings, 60% complete. Labor 340 shillings, 50% complete. Overheads to 70 shillings, 40% complete. Transfer from process 1. We had 4,100 units valued at 5,200 shillings. We have transferred to process 3, which is transferred to process 3, that is 3,500 units. These are the units that were completed during that period. You only transfer a product to the next level when it is completely done under that level, so that it continues. Material introduced. These are now the costs during the period. This is the cost during that period. Now, material introduced cost 2,956, labor 2,200, overheads 1,900. Then closing stock 100 units at the following stage. Closing stock 800 units at the following stage of completion. Input material 100% complete. Material introduced 60% complete. Labor 50% complete. Overheads 40% complete. Then there is 400 units work scrapped at the following stage of completion. Input material 100% complete. Material introduced 100% complete. Overheads 30% complete. Labor 40% complete. The normal loss is 10% of production, and the scrap units realized 40 points each. This 40 points simply means 0.4 shillings. It is required to prepare the process account for process 2 using the FIFO method. That one we had done. The FIFO method, that one we had done. Then we go to the average cost method. That's what we are doing today. Average cost method. The average cost method. That's what we are doing today. First thing first. What you do first, you want to know the equivalent unit. I know by now you understand what equivalent unit is. What we first do is calculate the equivalent unit and cost per unit. Equivalent unit. Let's calculate equivalent unit. Calculating equivalent unit. Length, unit, and not equivalent unit, calculating effective unit. Sorry for this. Calculating effective units. Effective unit simply effective units and cost per unit. This simply means the equivalent unit of what we have worked on within the period. This means equivalent unit of what we have worked on during that period. Now, what we are going to do, we go draw a table. Just draw a table. The first thing you understand, we have cost elements. The same way we did with before. Cost elements. These cost elements. And now we want to then you draw a line. What are our cost elements? We have input material. If we have our input material, we have our material introduced. We have labor. We have labor, we have overheads. Now, what we are looking for is effective units. For us to find effective units, it is a sum. It is a sum of completed units plus equivalent units in closing work in progress, equivalent units in closing work in progress. Okay? Equivalent unit in closing work in progress. Then we add abnormal loss. Then we add our abnormal loss. Equivalent units in abnormal loss. Equivalent units in abnormal loss. Equivalent units in abnormal loss. Okay? That is what gives us This give us effective units. This give us effective units. Effective units for the period, okay? Now, we close. Okay? Let us do the ruling just to ensure that we are organized. Then, we go to the cost per unit part. Now we want to find the cost per unit. We are looking into cost per unit. How do we find the cost per unit? Okay? How do we find the cost per unit? Okay? Now, we had opening work in progress. We have the opening work in progress that had been, we were given the value. So it will be opening work in progress. Opening work in progress. Opening work in progress. Value. This is value. Here, as you can see, the opening work in progress is not equivalent units. It is not equivalent units. It is the value is what we take. It is what the value is what we take. Because these are units that were done previously. The work was done on them previously, but not complete. Not fully complete. So what we are working on them is the value that remains. The value that we worked on this period. The value that we worked on this period. Remember, this was the first thing we worked on FIFO. On FIFO, this was the first work materials that we were to work on. So they were the first in. They were the first in. And therefore, in FIFO, we use them in terms of unit because we are trying to find out the cost of each unit before calculating the cost, the general cost. Now, the value. Then we look at the period cost. Now this plus the cost within the period cost. The cost that we incur within this period. Okay? Within this period, okay? And then this give us the total unit, the total cost. Okay? Now, and then this is we have cost, unit cost is something equivalent to total unit cost. Here is total cost divided by total cost divided by effective over effective units. Okay? That's what we consider as cost per unit. Now let us continue. We start from completed units. Our completed units were 3,500. So 3,500 were complete. 3,500 were worked on. Material 3,500. Remember, these are cost elements. Cost elements goes with the number of units worked on. So we believe that the completed units were 3,500. Therefore, input materials, the cost of input materials for 3,500 The material introduced cost for 3,500. Okay? The labor that we used on this 3,500, the completed unit, and the overhead that we used on 3,500. I hope you are following. Then we have equivalent units in closing work in progress. Closing work in progress. Now, closing work in progress, we had 800. We had 800 units. Okay? We had 800 units. Now let us look at what happened. What happened then? In our question, what happened? Closing working units. So, closing stock, we had 800 units. But this is what happened. This is what we worked on. Input materials were 100%. Input materials. The whole 800 units consumed input materials. So, input materials here consumed were 800 units. Now, material introduced. What was consumed? Material introduced, consumed was 60%. Now, 60%, multiply this by 60%. 60%, that was be around 480, I believe. Last time we calculated, we got 480. Yeah, we got 480. So it is 800 times 0.6. That is 480. So here we have 480. This is the equivalent unit. Okay? Then we go to labor. Labor consumed so far is 50%. Then we multiply here by 50%. By 50% to get labor. 50% of 800, that is 400 units. 400 units. Then we have overheads. Overheads, we are told was 40%. Now 40%, we multiply this by 40%. So there we multiply by 40. That is 320. Now we go to equivalent units in abnormal loss. Equivalent units in abnormal loss. Abnormal loss. Last time we calculated, we had 10. Just to remind you, remember we had 10% as normal loss. This we calculated and we got 390. But what was scrapped was 500. Scrapped was 400 units. Okay? Units. So normal loss is the loss you expect to incur. Anything beyond that is just abnormal loss, something you didn't expect. Anything below it is abnormal gain. Anything above normal loss is abnormal. We call it abnormal loss. Anything below normal loss is abnormal gain. So here, what is the difference? The difference here is 10, and that is what we have in units. Okay? So we had 10 units. We had 10 units. So what was the completion? Remember, up there at the information giving us where we are being told about scrap units were scrapped at the following stage of completion. Input material were 100%. Input material were 100%. So this is 10 units. We have material introduced. That was worked on was 10. It was 100%. And then we have overheads. No, we go to labor. Labor was 40%. 40%. This one stands for 0.4. Or stands 40%. That gives us 4 units. Then we had overheads. Overheads was 30. 30. This one is divided by, you multiply by 0.3 because it's 3%. We get 3 units. So our effective unit therefore, in terms of input materials, now you can take your calculator and give me the addition. In terms of input materials, in terms of this 3,500 plus 800 plus 10. You get 430. 10. Okay, we have materials introduced is 3,500 plus 480 plus 10. No, yeah, 480 plus 10. That is 3,990. 3,990. 3,990. 3,990. 3,990. Then we have 3,500 plus, that is labor, plus 400 plus 400 plus 4. We get 3,904. 3,904. Then we have overheads 3 plus 320 plus 3. This is 38, 23. 23. Now, let us continue. Now we go to the value. Let us do something to make this look clean. We go to the value. We go to the value part. Opening work in progress in terms of value, we were told input materials 720. Input materials, we were told 720. Then we had material introduced to 500. Then we have labor cost of labor was 3,040. 340. Then we have overhead which was 20 to 70. Now, cost for the period. Period cost you are given. Material introduced was 2,956. 2,956. But there's something you must understand. Material introduced. Then we have input materials. Let us start with input materials. Input materials, we are told, that is transfer from process 1. Transfer from process 1 was 5,200. That 5,200. Now, material introduced. Remember what we did when we were calculating FIFA. It still works here. We had a loss. We have been given a loss. Let us try and do it somewhere down here. We were given that we had a loss. Let us look at it. Let us look at it. The normal loss is 10% of production. The normal loss is 10% of production. It's 10% of production. That is the normal loss. Now, we want to find out what did we produce, what was produced, okay? We were told it is 10% of total production. So what did we do? We produce? We had opening work in progress, which was 600. You remember? We had to transfer from process 1, which was 4,100. Okay. Then we had that one is. Then these are the materials that came in. These are what we worked on, and that give us 4,700. 4,700. We are looking for what we produced. We are looking at what we produced, okay? So we less work, closing work in progress. Closing work in progress. So closing work in progress is 800. What do you get? Production is therefore 4,700 minus 800, that is 3,900. 3,900. Now, 10% of this, what we expected it to be normal loss. The normal loss we expected to be 10% of this. So 10% of this times 10% of that give us 390 units. That is what we have here. No, is that there? This one, yeah, 390. But under this 390, this is what we expected to lose. This is what we expected as a loss. But there was a statement telling us that there was a scrapped. There was something scrapped. The scrapped units. These scrapped units, therefore, the scrapped unit here were 400. So this one is what we were for 400. So this one gives us our abnormal loss. Therefore, abnormal loss. Therefore, is that 400 minus 390, and that's what we get 10 units as our abnormal loss. Now, wherever you sell, we are being told, therefore, that the scrapped units realized 40%, no, 40 points each. They were later on sold. This normal loss plus this, they were sold at 40 points each. 40 points. That is 0.4 shillings. That is 0.4 shillings. That is shillings, 0.4. 0.4 shillings. So at what cost? So what was the value of the sale? The value of the sale, therefore, is 390 times 0.4. You get 156. Get shillings, 156. Remember, from our accounting for process, which is also in the YouTube platform, which is also in the, you can find on YouTube. We say wherever you sell a normal loss, wherever you get a value from normal loss, what does that tells you? That it simply means that the normal loss has brought in something. What you are expecting to incur as a loss has brought in something. So what you do, you use that to reduce the cost of your material. You use it to reduce the cost of your material. Now, our material here, we have been told that the material introduced during the period was material, let me do it here. The material introduced during this period is costed 2956 shillings. Okay? Now, we had our expectation of 390 units as a loss, but we got something from it. So this is what we subtract, what we got from our loss, our normal loss. So that's 156. So the cost now reduces. So it will be the cost now, the total cost. The cost we are now working with will be 956 minus 156, and this gives us 2,800. And that 2,800 is what we take as the cost. So here we get 2,800. We get 2,800. Now we continue. We go to labor. Labor used during the period was 2,200, and then overheads that we was used was 1,900. Up to that point, I hope you are with me. Now, we need to get the total cost. Now, what is our total cost? Our total cost, therefore, is this plus that. Okay? We add. We add 720 plus 5,200 plus 5,200, that is 5920. This gives us 5920. 500 plus 2,800, that is 3,300. Then we have 340 plus 220. That's 2,540. We have 270 plus 18 1 plus 1,900, that was 2170. Now, up to this point, you see we have effective units. These are the units we worked on during this period, the period in question. We have the total cost we incurred during the period. It simply means, for example, let's just take labor. that labor that we had on this, or on what we had used, what we worked on in terms of what labor was, we only used this amount in labor, in terms of labor. That's what we used in terms of, that was costed us. What that the cost of labor, that this is the cost of labor. The same to this, that is the cost of material introduced, and this is also the cost of input materials. Overheads also costed us this one, 2170. Now, if that is the case, now we are looking at equivalent effective units. So these are the equivalent effective units. In terms of overheads, if we rate the overheads, what we worked on is this, the equivalent unit. Now we want to find the cost of this equivalent unit. We want to find the cost of this equivalent unit. Look, we had 410 input materials. What was the rate of input materials? That's what we are getting, unit cost. That's the unit cost we are getting. So it will be total cost, which is 590. 559, 1.3, it is 1.37, it is 1.37. Then we have material introduced, 399 divided by 330, no, it is 330. It is 330. So it is 3,300 divided by 3,990. That one gives us 0.82, 0.83. Let's say 0.83. Round it off, or we can just use 0.27 to reduce the error. Let us use 37 to reduce error. Here also let us use 4. Let us use 3 decimals to reduce error. Now, we also have labor. So that is 2540. What was the labor? The equivalent units in terms of labor, that is 3939 divided by 3904. That is 0.651. Then we go to overheads. We have 2170. Divided by 3823. That gives us 0.567. But it is 0.5676. So let us round it off. So it will be 0.567. Let us do this to be 878. Round it off. Now we have the cost per unit. Or what you can call the rates. The rates per unit. In terms of overheads, what we are using per unit. For example, it simply means producing 1 unit. We used producing 1 unit. It costed us 0.568 shillings. 0.568 shillings. This is the rate per unit in terms of overheads, labor, materials, and input. Introduce input and input materials. Now, from there, we can now calculate we can now calculate the cost of various elements, in our problem. Actually, we can now do away with the what? Let us do away with this side. Let us leave this part alone. Only our answers. That's what is going to be useful. That's what's going to be useful now. All this is not useful now. You already know this. So use some small renaming. Before we move on. So this is input material. Is this one. This is material introduced. And then this is labor. This one is labor. This is overheads. Now, those are the rates in terms of the elements we have, the cost elements. Now we can now completely do away with this. Now, first, we want to know the value of closing work in progress. The value of closing work in progress. We have the equivalent unit. We have the equivalent unit. We have cost per unit. And then we have value. The value, okay? Now, remember this. We have the cost elements. We start with input materials. IM. Input materials. The input materials. What is the equivalent unit? 800. Okay? What is the cost per unit? Cost per unit is 1.374. Now we also have material introduced. Material introduced. Equivalent unit was 480. Equivalent unit is 480. The cost per unit is 0.827. Then we have labor L. Labor equivalent unit is 400. We have calculated all this. It's 400. At what cost? 0.651. And then we also had overheads. OH. There we had the equivalent unit is 320. Equivalent we had calculated and we got 320. Then the cost per unit is 0.568. In fact, rate. Now, what is the value? Okay? Value is simply multiply 1.374 times 800. That is 10 99.2. 1099.2. 1099.2. 1099.2. We have 480 times 0.827. That's give us 339.6.96. 396. 396. Then we have 400 times 0.5, 0.651. 0.651. We have 260.4. 260.4. Then we have 320 times 0.568. 0.568, that will be 181.71. 81.76. 181.76. Now, what is the total cost or the total value? The total value will therefore be all this. That means what is going to give us closing work in progress terms of value. 181.76 plus 260.4 plus 396.96 plus 1099.2. This gives us 1938.32. Now, our closing work in progress. Our closing work in progress in terms of value. Just put it somewhere here. Closing work in progress. Closing work in progress in terms of value is 1938.32. That is our working progress. That's the value of the working progress. Then we go to the next element. The next element, let us another space. We are done with this. Now let us go to let us do abnormal loss. Abnormal loss. Okay? Abnormal loss. We have cost per unit. Then we have value. Okay? Value. Abnormal loss we got 10. So in terms of introduced material, input materials, like because of what? Input materials we had 10. Input materials we have 10 as equivalent. Then we have material introduced, we also have 10. It was 100%. Then we had labor, which was 4. Then we had overhead, which is 3. Now, the cost per unit is 1.374. Material introduced is 0.827. Labor is 0.651. Then we have overhead is 0.568. Now the total, this will be 13.74. 10 times that one. This one will be 8. 28.27. This is 4 times 0.651 will be 2.604. 2.604. Then we have 3 times 0.568. 0.568, that one is 1.704. We add everything plus, 2.604 plus 8.27 plus 13.74. Get 26.318. So here is abnormal loss. Abnormal loss we have 26.318. 26.318. Now, what next? What next is completed production? Completed production. Completed product. The completed product. Completed product. Completed product. Everything remains. Everything remains. What was completed? What was completed? Everything remains. Completed. Completed production. Completed production. Completed production. Cost per unit. Completed production, we had completed production is what we transfer to the next process, that is 3,500. Here 3,500. 3,500. 3,500. Cost per unit is 1.74. 1.374. This one is 0.827. Labor is 0.651, and then overhead is 0.568. Overheads 0.568. Now, let us get the cost. So 3,500 times 1.374. This is 4809. Then we have the same number times 0.827. 0.827. This is 28. 28.9.5. 2894.5. 22,894.5. Then we have labor 0.651. This gives us 2278.5. Then we have 0.568. That's for overheads. This gives us 1988. Now the total. Now the total will be plus 2278.5 plus 28.4.5. Then we have 4809. This gives us 9170. 917. Then we have completed production, completed production 1. 970. Now, having done that, now we can prepare our account. We can now prepare our account. We have everything that we need. We have probably everything that we need. We can now prepare our account. Now this is process 2. Now we have process. Now let us put this somewhere in the middle. Process 2. Come. It's not in the right place. Let us try somewhere else. In the right place. This is process 2. Account. Process 2 account. Let us call it process 2 account. Put a bracket. Average method. Average method. Okay. Now what we have the items. You have units. And then we have amount. Pound in shillings. Okay? Pound in shillings. We also have the item. We have the units. We have the amount. Here we are using shillings. The amount we are using shillings. Same. This is here, and this is here. Okay. Now we start with opening work in progress. Opening work in progress units. We were told 600. We were told 600. What was the cost of work in progress? Opening work in progress. Let us go to our question. Now, work in progress, we had input material 720, we had material introduced 500, then we had labor 340, and then we had overheads 270. Now we add. We simply add. Simple as 720 plus 500 plus 340, then plus 270 plus 270. Here we get 1830. Now you go ahead. Now we have transferred from process 1. From P1. Transfer from P1. You were told you were given 5,200. So they were 4,100 units at 5,200 units. 5,200 units. Then we have material. Material introduced. We were told to be 2,956. That was the material introduced. We were given. Then we had labor. The same period. Remember, these are now we're using the period, the very period. Cost, the cost within the period, we had labor cost 2,200. Then we had overheads. Overheads was 1,900. 1,900. And because we had a normal loss and abnormal loss, we didn't get abnormal gain. If we had an abnormal gain, then we could have placed it on the debit side. We could have placed it on the debit side. So we can just do the addition. This one will give you 4,700. And then adding all this, 130 plus 500 plus 2956 plus 2200 plus 1900. This gives you 14,086. Now let's go to the part that gave us a lot of calculation, the part that normally we are working on. We start with abnormal loss. We start with normal loss. Let us start with normal loss. Our normal loss, we had it somewhere. Our normal loss is this one. I think we are done it. It was rough. Yeah, we have it here. Our normal loss. So our normal loss there were how many? 390 units. Normal loss 390 units. We sold at about 156. We had abnormal loss. Abnormal loss we had 26. But we had 10 units. 10 units equals 26. Therefore, let us round up to the whole number. If we round it up to the whole number, that is 26 shillings. 26 shillings. Then we have closing work in progress. 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 Closing work in progress were 800 units. 800 units. The value was 800 units. Closing work in progress 1938. 1938. This one. 1938. And that is rounded off to the nearest whole number. Now, when you balance your account, because let us see. Let us add this and get how many units are there. We have the complete retail production, complete or transfer to, let us say it's transfer to process P. We had 3,500. Let us do the addition. It's 390 plus 10 plus 800 plus 3,500. This gives us 470. Up to that point, account has balanced. Okay? Our account has balanced. Now let us do this. Let us do the amount side. So that is 156. Take 6 plus this one brings 11, 970. Then 56. Then 56 plus 26 plus 19, 38 plus 11, 70. 1170. 1170. 11970. 11970. This give us the total comes to 14090. 14090. But here we have 14086 minus that answer. We have a difference of 4. Difference of 4 shillings. What brings the difference? What brings this difference is simply the rounding off. The rounding off that we have done since we started our calculation. Look, this is a rounded off, rounded off, rounded off. All this we have been doing rounding off. So it should balance. It should balance. So the balance is 14086. 14086. Now let us now find the true value. The true value of this. The true value of that, therefore is 14. Therefore, it's 14. No. Yeah, it is 14. 14086 minus 156 minus 26 minus 1938. And therefore this becomes 11966. 11966. And therefore our account balances. Now, up to that point, I believe you have understood what it entails when you are told to prepare account for work in progress. When you are asked as an accountant to prepare our account for work in progress. Prepare account for work in progress, or accounting for work in progress. Now, in the next class, we are going to discuss in the next class, we're going to discuss something very simple. Let me see. We have done accounting for processes, work in progress. Now in our next class, we are now going to do marginal and absorption costing. We are going to do marginal and absorption costing. That's what we are going to do in our next class. Marginal and absorption costing. Until then, have a nice day.